We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Translators on Air. My name is Dmitry Kornyukhov. I'm your host. Join me today, my incredible co-host, Helena Tereshchenkova. Hi, Helena.
Hey, everyone.
And our guest today, Jeannette Stewart. Hi, Jeannette.
Hello, everyone.
Jeannette is a co-founder of Translation Commons. She also holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, and her early career was in advertising and marketing. She's also the founder, former CEO of CommuniCare. It's a leading translation company specializing in life sciences, with offices in London, Paris, Athens, Budapest, and Los Angeles. And the topic of our today's conversation is going to be Translation Commons, its mission, objectives, and programs. But before we jump to the topic of our conversations, I'd like to make a few announcements, as always. The second season of Translators on Air has been sponsored by our friends at SmartCat. SmartCat offers a free translation platform for translators. So if you're looking for a great CAT tool, check out SmartCat by clicking the button below this video that says check out SmartCat, the free translation platform. Or if you're watching this in the recording, you can click the first link in the description. Okay, we already have a few people joining in. Hello, Ina. Hello, Christina. Hello, Yelena, Nancy, Eleonora. Alain, Gabriela, Ellen, thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to have you on our show. In case some of you are new on this platform, let me show you around. This is a live webinar. Everything is happening in real time here. So if you have any specific question about the topic of our conversation or any other questions that you would like Jeannette, Helena, and I to discuss, feel free to push a button that says ask a question or suggest a topic. There's an orange button below this video stream, or you can use a chat window on the right hand side and leave your comments, say hi, and tell us a few things about yourself. Okay, hello Jeannette, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And thank you for hosting this Translators on Air episode. I am very, very thrilled to be part of it.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Same here. It's always a pleasure to have these webinars. It's a ton of fun. And it's actually a highlight of our weeks. I think Yelena and I, we are both agree that it's always a ton of fun to meet fellow professionals. Not in real life, but something that is similar to real life. At least we can see each other's faces, and it's a ton of fun. How was your morning, Sunday? You are on the Pacific coast, right?
Well, yes, I'm Pacific time. I'm actually in Las Vegas, which is Pacific time, and the weather is great today, and it's very early in the morning, 9 o'clock.
We do envy you because I'm in Canada and Yelena is in Russia, and it's the middle of winter, and in my case, it's kind of like not really winter, but a very, very cold autumn.
Yeah.
In my case, it's winter, all right. So we've got lots and lots of snow this year.
Yeah, so we miss the snow very much, the sun very much.
But it's easy to get tired. Whatever of the two you have, if you have it too much, you can get tired. The best is to have all four seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeannette, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself? Tell us about your experience and the company that you started, basically everything that you can share about yourself.
Well, I started in the language industry with my very, very first job. I was advertising coordinator for a very big pharmaceutical company. And one of the things that I had to do was obviously make sure that the content is translated. I was in Greece at the time. And it was impossible to find medical translators in Greece. So I decided that I would do it myself because I was bilingual. I had a medical director in the company that I could confer with. And I got myself a couple of medical dictionaries and I educated myself. And I did, all the medical translations for that company because it was quicker, better. And I was able to have the medical director correct all my medical errors because, you can't be a medical translator just like that. But it was a trial and error at the time, and that introduced me to the industry. So when I actually moved to London and I met my husband, we got married, and I was trying to find an entrepreneurial outlet for myself. I remembered the industry, and I realized at the time that there was a need for a service for the medical, pharmaceutical, and medical device industry that wasn't being met. So I was quite keen to get into that area. And I started the company just merely, you know, servicing certain pharmaceutical clients that I knew of. And soon enough, the company became very busy and profitable. So my husband, who was an IT professional, he was in artificial intelligence at the time in British Telecom, he joined me, and he did all the IT infrastructure for our company, and we managed, you know, to propel from a small cottage industry little environment into a much more sophisticated agency. Catering for medical, life sciences, medical devices, and so on and so forth. So we were in that industry from the beginning, I would say. At some time, go on.
I'm sorry for interrupting. What were the biggest challenges when you were starting this agency back then?
The biggest challenge at the time was specialization. There were a lot of translators already in the industry in the 90s, but they were not specialized in medical and pharmaceutical translation. So that was the biggest challenge. So at the time, we were going to conferences, we were going to the schools and speaking to graduates and urging them to specialize, choose something that they had a passion about, and asking them to specialize in a specific area. And of course, you know, we had to create some workshops. We were trying to help people specialize. We enlisted a number of doctors in various countries that would actually edit the work and then give it back to the translators and train this way slowly medical translators. But it was the only way forward at the time to be able to provide our clients with what exactly they needed and that level of quality. It seems as if it's a long time ago, because we did sell the company in 2008 to RWS, and since then I still have been involved quite heavily in the localization and translation industry. I had moved for quite a few years in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, where I was involved with quite a few companies, and now with Translation Commons, I find that everything that I had built up is coming together, and to be able to create a community in our industry, you need to have the overview of how the industry works in all its sectors and all the different aspects of it, and all the pain points and all the issues that arise, and to be able to address them within a community. So this is what has brought me and my husband Alan to create you know, Translation Commons in our way of giving back to the industry and trying to create a cohesion, which there wasn't there before. And although there are a lot of elements that are showing that this cohesion is on the rise, and you know, the industry is becoming more and more sophisticated, this is the right time, we feel, to have a community you know, sense.
So, but how did you first get the idea of creating a community?
It all started in 2014. I came across this new buzzword, collaborative commons, and the concept of the language community collaborating, you know, it struck a very, very deep chord with me. So how could that be? What would the benefit be to everyone to collaborate on that level? Could it be that it was collective memories? Could it be data? Or are we just merely talking about, you know, getting together and talking to each other? So, you know, the thought was in my mind for quite some time. I wrote a long form post on LinkedIn, Pulse, and it had a huge response from the language professionals. The post was, can the language industry embrace collaborative commons and survive? But it was just exploring the possibility at the time. So I discussed this idea in various conferences, in networking events with many language professionals, mostly in Silicon Valley, which is where I was at the time. But I also had many online conversations through many LinkedIn groups. So I got to meet a lot of people online at the time. So that brought me to create a LinkedIn group to see if an idea of an online community is something feasible. So I was surprised. I remember starting the group in December 2014, and by January 1st, 2015, just 20 days later, there were about 1,000 members engaged and greeting each other and posting. So I felt that, exactly, as feasibility studies goes, I felt this was a runaway success. So it kind of reassured me that there was a requirement that was needing to be fulfilled, which was what, you know, had brought me to write this, you know, post. So, you know, I've always been in business with my husband. So after some discussions, we both committed in taking Translation Commons to the next level. So we started a corporation, we applied for nonprofit status. A few months later, to our complete surprise, the IRS agent not only granted us the nonprofit status that we requested, but in addition determined that we are a public charity, something like Red Cross, for example. So at this time, the LinkedIn group had been very, very active. And through various conversations, we started the first working group, which was the mentoring think tank. And I will talk about it later in a minute. I'm just giving you the background story now. So first, we started talking with various supporters and various engaged professionals, and we asked them to join us as advisors. So we have an amazing group of people now, which is still growing every day. And we realized that we needed to move on and start building the online platform so we could move from LinkedIn to our own space. So thankfully, we teamed up with an amazing engineering company in Spain called Promsit, who understand and share our vision. And they specialize in engineering solutions for the language industry. So we have been working for them for nearly 6 months now, and we have managed to deliver phase 1 of our website. The next phase, we hope to be online by early summer 2017, and we will continue delivering phases, you know, after that. So just to be clear, this is a vast undertaking, and we're still at the very, very early stages of the community platform. We do invite people to join and register, but not everything will be available, you know, but literally this is the beginning of the beginning. I want to go back to say a few more things about what Translation Commons is before, you know, we go into the details, because I want to make sure that everybody understands. So Translation Commons is a non-profit online community consisting of language professionals, and community is the imperative word, basically. So it is all inclusive of all sectors of the language industry, because we want to encourage dialogue, we want to encourage sharing, and we want to address all the pain points of our industry. So with the background of the language industry booming at the moment, and the requirements of the language services constantly increasing, and we're you know, going towards a 24/7 multilingual real-time translation requirement. And yet we feel that the major players in the global arena are not necessarily addressing the problems of providing these services. So we feel there is no roadmap for the language industry. A few decades ago, we had always been an afterthought in globalization efforts of corporations. And we feel that now is the time for us to address these aspects of our industry and unite in a common objective. So keeping in mind that the language industry is extremely diverse, because we have linguists, academics, we have engineers, and we have business people, consultants, and each of these broad categories is divided further into subgroups. And if you think that the vast range of languages, yes, there's about 7,000 languages, but you know, the ones that are very active and spoken is about 200 languages, but even that is a huge number. So that is a mark of how diverse our industry is. So what we see Translation Commons is that it is the community for all the language professionals.
Can I stop you for a minute? I have a question. So you're saying that the language industry is very diverse due to different professions being involved, and to 200 only active languages that are being used and spoken. So what are some of the common pain points for all these diverse groups? Are there any, and what are they?
Well, I would say that the most common pain point for all these sectors is that we lack recognition. Our language industry is taken for granted most of the time by most other professionals. And yes, when you have our clients within the localization and translation industry, they're very much aware of us and they value us, they respect us. But the general public does not know about this huge step or the huge layer of language translation, interpretation, and services that without this, there is no globalization, or there is globalization, but no localization. And they take it for granted. And yet, you know, it is a very, very difficult task to perform under the circumstances, and nobody knows about us. You know, if it wasn't for a couple of films a couple of decades ago, nobody would know anything about us. But, you know, gradually we're beginning to have some recognition and some understanding of how difficult it is to do what we do. I would believe that a lot of the other subsectors within our industry have different pain points, but that for me would be the one which is common.
Yeah, this is something that comes up in our discussions over and over again, and it doesn't really depend on the topic or what we're talking about at some point. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why uniting and you know, having a much more clear identity of our community from within, you know, from all the professionals together is going to help this recognition, because we need first ourselves to be clear about our identity, to be clear about our community, to work toward together, to unite, and to have a roadmap. And then we will be much stronger to be able to have this recognition that, you know, we so deserve.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So
is this then the mission of Translation Commons, or is it formulated in some other way?
Okay, well, it's probably formulated differently, because the mission is not to create recognition necessarily, but in a nutshell, I would say that Translation is concerned in helping all language professionals to maximize their contribution in the language industry and therefore achieve due recognition for their work. So it kind of works together. I want to, it's a very broad statement, so I would like to analyze it a little bit more and break it into smaller bits, so, you know, everybody shares to this mission and vision. So the vision in helping the language industry is to build an infrastructure where we can all together improve our technological capabilities across all languages. We know that some languages have a lot of technology supporting them and some don't. So we want to make sure that there is some equality for the languages, and especially the endangered language, which always, people are passionate about them. And that way, we help preserve, the culture. Another one would be is to enable current and future professional students. It's important with the growth of our industry that we allow the newcomers, the graduates, to seamlessly, integrate within the professional body. So we want to facilitate collaboration and mentoring. Collaboration is imperative for us to have a roadmap. Mentoring is imperative because then we share information, we share knowledge, and we help the younger people, integrate. We also want to organize the world's language resources. This is a huge statement, the way, the IT companies today say we want to change the world. We really don't want to change the world. All we want to do is just make sure that all these wonderful initiatives that language professionals have, and we never get to hear about them, have a space somewhere that we can all know that there is a group somewhere that is doing something, and it's an amazing project. We want to know about this project. We don't want to have duplicate projects, but at the same time, we want to be able to have the exposure to other people who may want to be part of this project. So we want to, have a space for all these initiatives to have a home and exposure. And of course, all of this is in order for us to be a united community, creating a roadmap for ourselves. So these are some of the things that we have identified so far, with all the people that have volunteered so far. But to do so, we need to have certain objectives. So we're starting to break down, okay, so these are all wonderful things, but how do we do all of these things? So one of the ways is to provide tools of trade for free use. And we want to encourage open source. Open source helps us have innovation. And we want to encourage our engineers and our translators to use open source tools. Not that we want to encourage them not to use proprietary, but there is a place for everything. And then we want to safeguard the integrity of the data. We want to make sure that translators, are able to securely have copyright for their data, that there is an above board situation where everybody knows whose data it is anyway. We want to create consolidated memories for the benefits of the translators, a space where people can choose to contribute to a memory or not, depending if it's confidential or not. A place where by just contributing, your own memories, you get another 100, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 translators' memories. And all of this is just for translators, not for the language, the larger industry, not necessarily for the clients, it's for the translators to benefit. And we want to assist the students in doing this critical transition in becoming professionals. It is a very, very difficult transition. And although we don't have any statistical data telling us whether there is a special percentage of language translation graduates becoming translators or not, the empirical knowledge tells us that it's only a small percent that actually make it as freelance translators. A lot of the language graduates are actually getting jobs, not even in the language industry, but with their, bilingualism and their skills, they're getting a job outside it. So we want to retain that. We want to introduce self-governing practices to the language community, to the smaller sectors. There are associations out there and they're doing a fantastic job, but all associations are language related or country related. Although there is the international association, we feel that if we can have it as a community for all sectors, as opposed just for the translators, then we can help the self-governing practices. And also we want to improve the relationships and unite our fragmented industry. So these may just seem a little bit of a tall order, but so far we have managed to address some of these issues by creating working groups who are providing a real service at the moment. I'll talk about the working groups a little bit later, because I want to first break down of, this is the vision, the mission, this is what the objectives of what we're trying to do, and break it down on how we're actually doing it by explaining our website very, very briefly.
Yes.
So,
and we'll provide the link to the website in the show notes, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So we are dividing our website in different modules. So at the moment we have 4 modules: the Translate module, the Share module, the Learn module, and the Work module. So in the Translate module, we offer open source applications which are secured on our servers, and we encourage our members to translate with them. Our aim is to create a seamless platform with all available open source applications and create the ones that we are missing, we don't have yet. And in this platform, we aim to unite the software engineers who are building these applications with the users who are the translator. So then they can have instant and meaningful feedback. As we know from the general IT industry environment, open source facilitates innovation and security. So we hope that all proprietary automation providers will join us in contributing for the benefit of moving our industry to the next level, basically. But if we do so as a whole, we'll have the real input from the translators, which is missing right now from both the proprietary automation providers, but also from some of the open source projects that are out there. So this Translate module is designed to be used in order to improve our technology. So in the second module, in the Share module, we aim to have this as the home for the community. So we want to have here our working groups, our programs. They'll all be featured, and all of them will be accessed from the Share module. Any member of the community can start a new project, and they can ask people to join existing projects or existing initiatives. We want to invite all initiatives, all nonprofits, any community project which is out there anywhere in the world to find a home here and to have that way exposure to the entire community and perhaps, grow the numbers and be able to achieve their objective. So,
are there projects already being shared in that module?
Excuse me?
Are there any projects that are already shared in that module? Can you give some examples if there are any?
Yes, there are, but they're not online yet. So if I finish with the modules, I will tell you about all our working groups. That would be my next thing. At the moment, we're working on the Share module to have it online within the next few months. So we're hoping by June, early summer, to have the Share module online. But you're right, in the meantime, because of the engagement of the community in the LinkedIn group, we actually have already quite a few, working groups, which, will be featured straight away when the Share module is ready. So very briefly, before we go to that, I'll just talk about the Learn module, where we have shareable resources. And they constitute one of our biggest programs, which is the eColo project. And again, this is something that we have started working already, and I will be going into details about the eColo projects. But the Learn module, our aim is to have tutorials for tools, for skills, for everything that anybody would need in order to be a language professional. And we also want to make sure that we have links to all proprietary automation tools here. And we've already started speaking with certain of these tool makers, and we have agreed trial sessions for all the Translation Commons members. So it's not just going to be the universities that are able to try these CAT tools. It will be any member will be able to have access to the trial. So in the work module, which is the last module, we want to offer our members the full Google G Suite, which was donated to Translation Commons because we're a nonprofit. There's about 60 applications that are available to our members, and we want to encourage them to fully partake into them because it will help them create a website, you know, create forms, be more interactive. There's a lot that they can do with that. We also want to help them with, you know, young graduates, help them with their stationery, find out the local business compliance information for, you know, whether it's VAT or sales tax or whatever it is in each country. So these are the 4 modules that we have identified. But as our members are getting engaged, you know, the requirements will change, and we're willing to be responsive and create more modules. So, you know, this was how we have identified how we can address all the objectives in our website. But at the same time, as we already know, we have quite a few working groups. They became, they emerged organically from within the community, and the biggest, you know, community exposure has been LinkedIn. But we call our groups think tanks. Because their job is to identify areas which need improvement. You know, where are the gaps that we need to fill? That's why we prefer the term think tank. So the first think tank that emerged from the LinkedIn group was a mentoring think tank. And although there are a few good mentoring programs available through associations and organizations around the world, we identified a complete lack of guidelines of what mentoring is for freelancers. So we created a survey to see what the industry professionals felt, and we analyzed it, we created conclusions, and and all of this showed us that both freelance mentors and mentees have a lack of understanding what to expect and how to go about agreeing on mentoring on a one-to-one basis. So as a working group, the mentoring think tank decided to create guidelines for freelance mentors who wish to take on freelance mentees. So under the guidance of Nancy Mattis, who has already been on your show, we now have a thriving group, which is writing an extensive document of mentoring guidelines for freelancers. So we also teamed up with the Lock World conferences, and we facilitated the creation of a community track there. So during one of the Lock World conferences recently in Montreal, we realized the need for a community think tank to produce best practices for many community aspects, including community translation, volunteer translation, and so on. So the community think tank is really the brainchild of some of our industry's most experienced community experts. And we have Jeff Beattie, who's the head of localization at Mozilla. We have Christian Aparta, who is the training resource manager at TED conferences. And we also have Aaron Bubbs, who is the community program manager in Facebook. Then next is the technology think tank. And that's an integral part of Translation Commons because our commitment to open source allows us to make language and the work of the translator the priority as opposed to the technology, which most automation providers are imposing. So we wish to have this open communication between what is really required by the language professionals and what it is that is available and where the gaps are and what do we need to build next. So we have Miquel Forcada of Apertium, and he's also professor in the University of Alicante, and Didier Briel of Omega T. We have Jean Orambeau of Mojito, and we have our recent addition of Yves Savorel of Okapi. And all together, we aim to unite all these language-related open source applications and facilitate their adoption and their usage. So the latest think tank, the fourth and latest at the moment think tank, is being formed right now, and it is the interpreting think tank. So we have Barbara Werderich and Arturo Bobea, both interpreters and translators, at the helm, and we are creating a group. And the aim of this group is to work on a survey to help us understand where is the technology today helping interpreters, and what are the breakthroughs that we really need to help interpreters in their daily work. So these are what we have so far, but we will continue creating think tanks. And as the need arises organically from within our community, and as the members themselves, come up with ideas, concepts, projects, we are going to be responsive to them and create the opportunities to work, So these are the working groups. The working groups all have come from within the community, decided by members. But at the same time, we feel that there are certain programs that Translation Common needs to instigate in order to meet our objectives. So these are the ones that the advisors and everybody involved in the creation of Translation Commons had agreed from the beginning that we need to address. And we have three types of programs. We have our education programs, we have our language technology programs, and we have our advocacy programs. So I can briefly go into these.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so one of the major concerns in our industry is that graduates of language departments do not have the necessary skills required by our advanced and sophisticated industry. One aspect is to help them acquire the skill, is to help the academics train the students with real-life material. So by the time, academic institutions create their programs, our industry has already moved in an extremely fast pace. So we need to bridge that gap. And one way of bridging the gap is to provide real-life material so the students can practice on this one. So this precise aspect was identified by a consortium of universities in Europe about 10 years ago. And they were granted about €1 million by the Leonardo da Vinci program to create resources for training students on automation tools, for audiovisual media, and how to create such programs and train the trainer. So this was the e-collar project, and it was extremely successful in Europe, but unfortunately it became dormant and is in much need for updating the material. So Pascaline Merton, the Vice Dean of Translation and Communication in the University of Brussels, approached us to discuss reviving this program. So now we have undertaken this vast task, and we hope that many more universities are going to join us. We hope that automation providers are going to join us. And we also hope that industry members, both language agencies, but also translators, will help us provide openly and freely these resource material that then the professors in the various universities around the world can use to help their students practice. And then this practice material is going to help students realize exactly what is going to be required for them when they graduate. So this project is being discussed of how we're going to house it, how we're going to update it at this moment. And again, we hope to have a breakthrough and a launch of a relaunch and revival of the project by summer 2017. So in the next category, we have the language technology programs. And this is where we want to identify gaps in the tools. And obviously, we want to make sure that open source applications are providing a seamless platform for the language professionals. We want to make sure that the feedback is coming. We want to create surveys and make sure that what is really needed facilitates, not just the 20 viable languages, but also endangered languages. that business imperatives usually exclude them. But we also hope to bridge various different sectors and facilitate that dialogue between the translators and engineers. And we also hope to be able to acquire certain grants as being a non-profit, that various technology initiatives within the industry can utilize the Translation Commons platform to apply for these grants. So finally, our advocacy programs. We think that there are many things we can fix under that, but the most famous issue for us is the copyright. So we have, Creative Commons, we have an open internet, but when it comes to copyright, there is some gray areas. When a client asks for a translation and the translation is given back, that copyright arrangement is very, very clear, although different countries have different, laws. However, when it comes to data collected from the internet, which feeds the machine translation engine, this is where we are starting to have some gray lines. What happens when someone posts on the internet and unknown to them, their text gets translated? What happens? Are there ways to establish ownership? Or do we restrict translation? So these are some of the questions we want to work towards establishing, maybe standards, maybe compliance, but at least some guidelines. So then we all know where we stand, with not just data, but with digital copyright of translations. So it's an exciting topic for me, this copyright advocacy.
I wonder what happens when, for example, someone translates the text, asking the author of the text for the permission to do it, and then publishes the translation, and then at some point both the source text and the translation get fed into a machine translation engine. What happens? How is the copyright of the original text and basically the translation copyright? What happens in this case to the copyright both?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we want to address. And we want to get our brains together. We want to have people support us from the Electronic Digital Frontier Foundation, from Creative Commons, from our own industry, from the legal side. Of course, different countries have different laws, but if we can get all the brains together to find out what is the best way for everyone. Are there solutions? There are solutions. And there are already some solutions for some of the aspects that have been, suggested by academics. But it's a vast topic that, I can't even begin to go into details because, I don't think we have all the information yet. I think we need a working group here to examine everything, and it's going to take some time, and then put down what are the prerequisites for what do we need to do to safeguard copyright, and are there any solutions? I'm sure there are.
But at the moment, it's a gray area, like you say, right?
Yes, and that's why we've identified that this is something that we need to work. It may take us years, but we need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Speaking about working groups, how do people in those working groups that you have created, how do they interact with each other? Is there a specific place where people can gather together and discuss the challenges and the ideas?
Right, so the aim of the share module is exactly that. It'll have forums and everything. At the moment, what we're doing is we have Translation Commons was donated, the G Suite of, from Google. And this is very, very extensive. So we are able to create groups within the translationcommons.org domain. So when a member signs in and registers on our website, they immediately get given an email address, which is a translationcommons.org domain address. through this email, they have access to the entire Google Suite. And because of that, we can group people. So we have the MTT at translationcommons.org, which is the mentoring think tank. And in there, all the people's emails are there. So these people who are part of this think tank share a forum. They can address everybody in the group by just sending an email to mtt at translationcommons.org, and it goes to all the members who are part of the group. In the forum, they can post discussions, they can share a calendar, and they can also have hangout meetings, and they can attach documents. So there is a drive specifically for that group that the group shares, and all their working documents are shared this way. Most think tanks have decided to meet once a month as a touch base. So they all have their own documents of, you know, minutes of their agendas, their decisions, and their action points, and always, you know, setting up the next meeting. So it's fairly organized, and there are deliverables for most of the think tanks, only because they chose themselves. You know, the think tank is, let's work on this. Let's work on creating this guidelines. Let's create working on this best practices.
And how can people join a think tank?
So at the moment that the share module is not online, everything gets announced in the LinkedIn group. So if somebody wishes to get involved, by all means, register in the translationcommons.org website, send an email. We have a couple of emails that are evidently, you know, interactive, so you can, it'll come to all of us. So we will know that somebody wishes to help, and we will reach out. They can join the LinkedIn groups of Translation Commons. There is a LinkedIn group of Mentoring Think Tank, and there is also a LinkedIn group of Interpreting Think Tank. And right now we're very lucky because we are creating a very small team, which is headed by Victoria Ugarte from Foursquare, and we are creating a small social presence in Twitter and Facebook. So at the moment, we need volunteers to help us in our social group. And if there's anybody interested in helping us, especially for Facebook, we'd very much appreciate, please contact us straight away. And I think that most of the advisors and myself and everyone who is contributing to the existing group is going to be very happy to be approached by anybody who wants to work. We constantly get introduced to new people who want to, you know, join us in the Translation Commons, or they want to share and show their initiative. And we're very, very open to meeting with everyone.
We'll probably put all the contact details and the links to the group and the Twitter account in the show notes as well, so that people who would like to reach out could do that. I'm curious about your mentoring think tank. Are you going to provide to organize a mentoring program as well for people, to some kind of program where people, newcomers to the profession who would like to find a mentor, would be able to do that, or people, experienced translators who would like to take on mentees could make an announcement about that? Are you thinking about something like that?
It is possible. I think that at the moment, what is very important for everybody to understand is that Translation Commons is not designed to duplicate other efforts or initiatives. And we also don't want to step on other people's toes. We want to be all inclusive. So if there is a program that can be integrated within Translation Commons, or Translation Commons to be, you know, feeding into another program, we're very, very open and happy to do that. But at the same time, if our mentoring think tank feels that there is a gap in what is available, and that perhaps because most associations are dealing with their specific, members, and we need perhaps an organization like Translation Commons, which, membership to an association is not necessary. Because our membership is free, basically. All you have to do is register to have access to the online platform. Maybe, that would be a need that we can explore it at some other time in the future. At the moment, what we feel was the need, and what came out of the survey was that freelancers don't have a checklist, like guidelines, that this is what I need to. Mentees who go to a mentor don't necessarily know what to expect. So we can put some guidelines out in the open for both mentors and mentees, and make sure that they have their checklist and their guidelines. Then that will facilitate the two of them to decide how they want their relationship to be. So we're not actually interfering with this relationship or facilitating it. We're just creating a guideline that people may follow fully or follow certain parts of it. But in the future, whatever gap the think tank feels that is there and decides to work on that, it's up to the community to decide.
I really like your approach that basically everything you do depends on the community. I think it's a great thing, because the more responsibility you allow your members to have, the more they are probably willing to take on, and the better it is for the whole translation community.
Yeah,
exactly. And the Translation Commons platform allows, because you use that term, every member to have equal rights and equal exposure. And, it's up to people to do what they feel passionate about. And we want to support all these community projects.
Speaking about the support, like you said, you're a non-profit organization. How do you find funding to apply for grants? And if someone is supporting you, how can they support you?
Okay, so this is a very, very interesting topic. So our at the moment, our Translation Commons, which has been going on for 2 years, is fully volunteer-based. There is no exchange of money. There has been no funding other than what the founders have put in. And that is just to facilitate. A lot of the things that we have done have been done by volunteers. And then there are a few things that you need to pay. So, for example, we need to pay for our servers. We need to pay, for some of our design. We need to pay for some of the engineering, although we have had a lot of it donated. So this is supported at the moment by the founders. We would like to have some sort of, support from the industry. So to take care of exactly these things, these regular payments that need to be done in order for us to have this platform. But we are not at that stage yet, because we haven't launched yet. So we don't feel that at the moment we can go out there openly and saying, give us money. Sometime, we may, hopefully, like Wikipedia, ask members who are active and who get a benefit from this, to support. And it's not going to be much. We just need enough for the regular expenses that we can't have volunteers actually do it. But at the same time, we're striving to have people donate in kind. So a lot of these regular aspects, we hope to be able to fulfill, as we're growing, by donations in kind. We would like to retain the volunteer model, because then everything is above board. At some point in the future, if this needs to change because there are requirements that we need to fulfill for the platform, that is a different story that we haven't got to that point yet. So at the time, we're asking for either donations in kind or volunteers.
I see.
You mentioned a lot of benefits that people who join Translation Commons would have, but could you name, I would say, let's say 3 top benefits for people, not only translators, but also, as you said, engineers and other people involved in the language industry, the 3 top benefits that they will get from joining Translation Commons and actively participating in the community?
I think the biggest so far, and one that has come to me from various sources, is knowledge. Without realizing it, without doing anything about it, just by collaborating and speaking, there is a great level of mentoring going on, where, you know, the more experienced people are showing the less experienced team members how something is done, how, you know, you go about doing something, and what you do in certain circumstances. And that sharing of knowledge has helped quite a few people, and it's come back to me from various people saying that when I needed an answer, you know, all I had to do is just check the post of the LinkedIn group. Somebody had talked about something that I needed an answer. I didn't even need to ask it because, you know, the information was there. So this, I would say, is the number one. The second one, which is another one that has come by many people, is that the camaraderie of being in a community and you know, communicating and collaborating, you become, you know, you have more friends. Instead of being the translator working alone, you know, you have a group now. You have a sounding board. You have somebody that you can actually share, and you know, you can even say your personal things to somebody online, because it is very, very, very safe. You know where you are. So, as a third one, I would put the one that it's very inspiring, because we all have passions and we all want to do something to give back. And Translation Commons actually allows the members to bring their passion and to do something about it. And it inspires others as well. And I have been told by many people as well that they have been inspired to give. They have been inspired to communicate, to engage, and to be part of the group. And it's not just about you know, them having their name as a contributor. It's about belonging. And that is what a community is. So I feel that so far, what we have done, you know, in letting people know of our working groups through LinkedIn and now with the online platform, is that we have actually managed to bring together the community and help people belong in this community. And now we want to just reach out to everyone and grow it, so it's very meaningful for many people, not just for, you know, the 200-300 volunteers that we have so far, or for the 4,000 LinkedIn members that once we announce the, you know, the website, are going to migrate to the website. It's for everybody. We see from students from universities, the minute they hear about Translation Commons, they say, oh my God, that's such a good idea. You know, and so we have constant feedback of reassuring us that there was a need for this community. So it's not so much that it was a vision of what we think the future needs. I think that it was a necessity that we actually fulfilled here.
Yeah, I'm definitely that, especially because you know, I'm also building a community with the open mic, and many of the ideas that you shared and the benefits that community members are receiving, I can definitely see a great for knowledge and a sense of belonging somewhere, because I think this is something that is I wouldn't say missing, but is out of improve in our industry in that aspect. So I think initiatives like this are very important, and they're actually quite useful, and they help bring people together. And when you bring people together, then you bring the brightest minds. I mean, magic things can happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because we all have passions, we all have skills, and when we're united together, we're strong, and we can get that recognition that we need as an industry. And
we have a comment from Yelena who says it's hard though to bring translators together.
I see it, and there are some inherent issues in our industry. Sometimes there's a lack of trust, and with good cause sometimes, because there are problems that have occurred. But I do believe that trust is very important. Translators, yes, they are solitary creatures, and most of them, want to just get on and work by themselves, and that's fine. But everybody wants to belong somewhere, even if they don't participate. I've had people, say that, I have not participated in the LinkedIn group, but I always read all the posts because I'm interested. So, there are different ways that people can belong. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are engaged fully, and spend, an hour a day in Translation Commons. They can just, be part of it. It takes all of us, and we all have equal rights to belong in a community and benefit from it.
I agree. And even if someone thinks he or she is an introvert, it usually what it means is that you probably, as you say, won't be as active in a community, but you still, if you have a place where you can find the information you need and find the people who share your views and who have the same passions and who are interested in the same things, even if you don't write there or talk to somebody, talk to others, even just reading something that reflects your point of view is already can be interesting and nice and beneficial for you. So yeah,
it takes all. You don't have to be active to be part of a community. Belonging is how you each feel, and if there is something that at some point, two years down the line, it inspires you, then by all means, feel that you can get out of your solitary world and participate and contribute and be inspired to be part of it.
Yeah, and there was another thing that you said at the beginning of our conversation today. You mentioned that all the things that you've done during all the years that you are in the language industry, now you feel that they all in a way come together. And I think that I also have this feeling that a lot of things that I've been doing while working as a translator, and even earlier than that, now is the time that they are somehow come together. But I think that in order for those things in order to have this feeling and to connect the dots, you have to be with others. You have to exchange the information and share some things, and only then you can connect the dots and see that probably all your experience was for a purpose, for a certain purpose, so that you could complete certain things.
It is true. We validate each other. So your experience validates mine, and my experience validates yours and everybody else's. So by coming together, we become stronger, united. And if it is one thing that we have a pain point, and the most important thing, the recognition of our industry, well, it's only together we can do it.
Yep.
Yes. So where can people learn more about Translation Commons? Is it the website, the LinkedIn group?
Yes, the website translationcommons.org. In the bottom bar, we try to, give all the information of who we are, how we started. I can see somebody has written Tromons.org. No, it is not Tromons. Tromons is not translationcommons.org. Tromons is a project of the Rosetta Foundation, and their name is tromos.org. Our name is translationcommons.org. So what that project does is it matches translators, volunteer translators, with nonprofits. So that is a completely different project altogether. We are just the community. We don't deal with translations as such. Yes, it is very important to say that. Thanks for bringing it up. It is true that it's the first address that Google gives. I can see the message, and that is because we haven't launched our website yet, so we haven't had traffic. But once we launch our website and we have traffic, we haven't even finished all our SEOs, we haven't finished all our keywords, everything is in the process of being done. This is literally the beginning of our development. So yes, we are behind, and Tromos is the first one that comes across, because their a description of what Tromos is that they are a translation commons, but that's a description, it's not their name. It's been around for a while, and that's why it comes first. I'm pretty sure that once our website is up and somebody types in Translation Commons, we should be the first ones to come there, because that's the correct name.
Yeah.
And thank you that our website is prettier. Thank you. We try our best. So at the bottom bar, you will see, all the information. Everything is in progress and developing now. We're very, very interactive. So please write back to us or make suggestions, because it is a community a platform. So every suggestion counts for us.
Well, I guess we are going to wrap up for today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, Jeannette. It's always really inspiring to talk to a person who is passionate about what she does. It's been really great talking to you. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And we are happy that we could probably spread the information at such an early stage. So it was a pleasure for us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. I also want to, I see Nancy's avatar in the chat, and I want to thank Nancy Matisse for actually putting us in contact with Jeannette and with a couple of other great guests. I've been meaning to send you an email, but I'll just thank you here during our episode. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight, and please subscribe to our mailing list at translatorsonair.com so that you won't miss our future episodes. And please don't forget to check out the website of our sponsors at smartcat.ai. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.